Now we're talking about Module 5, Teaching Values in Civic Education. Once again, as always, this information should be laid out. You should have everything out, because if you can't read it necessarily on this PowerPoint video, this presentation, you should have the information out, so it's more of me kind of walking through something. Values. Like I told you before with case studies, values and case studies are by far my two favorite types of lessons to do in the classroom when they are applicable. When I say that, what I mean by that is you can't do these every day. You can't do any kind of lesson every day. You should break things up, try to differentiate, try to move things around in terms of learning. So let's talk about values. Values in civic education. In most schools, the attitude is out there that you don't want to talk about taboo topics, and most discussions are controlled by the teacher. If you think about this, go back to when you're in school. Did you have opportunity to really get out and really discuss and talk about value-laden issues in your classrooms? Most teachers, that's taboo. Okay, and we've done research on this. Some teachers really enjoy it. Most teachers find it somewhat taboo, and they only go so far in terms of difficulty of being controversial with values. But values are important because they have three factors. They talk about our life experiences. It also talks about personal beliefs about subject matter, and also talks about our school's role in the community. Are we trying to make students who are critically thinking people who can make value-based decisions? And one of the biggest issues when I talk to teachers out in the field, and even when I was teaching, is that we got to be careful not to push our ideals and values on the students. And remember, there's not always a wrong answer when you're talking about values. One of the lessons of the research I'm doing now is called the Fallout Shelter, where you have 12 individuals and you only have room for 5. And you've got to pick 5 individuals. And it becomes almost like a Donnybrook fight in the classroom when students get to small groups and they have to pick 5 people, because it means 7 people are going to be left out. And you've got to justify why you left 7 people out. And some people say it's too hard, but in reality, that's, I hate to be mean, not that we want to let 7 people die, but in life you have to make hard decisions. You have to justify those decisions not only to yourself, but sometimes to other people. So that's our life experiences and our personal beliefs. And then also here we're trying to make ourselves better learners in society. And it comes down to, we've got in values 2 different approaches. Okay, you got values integration, you've got values analysis. Let's talk about values integration first. The steps, these are our procedures, these are our steps. So once again, the lesson plan never changes. Copy, paste into your lesson plan, and you've got these areas here. Introduce the value, the activity, teacher explores and clarifies the value, a short discussion, students develop and explore the values in relation to themselves, and value is summarized. These are the easy steps for values integration. Now, values analysis, a little bit different. Introduction to the value, explore the value alternatives, brainstorm the positive and negative effects of each choice. Each student or group makes a value alternative, and students and groups defend their choices. I personally like this approach better. That's just me. I think it has more steps. It has more student involvement where they have to actually break it down and think critically versus this one. However, if you're doing a lesson, if this works best for you, then do this one or do that one. Don't do them both. Don't do a hybrid and kind of mix the 2 together. Okay? So just keep that in mind. Give you an example of values analysis that I did when I worked on a grant on early Islam, and we actually taught this to a workshop to teachers in Shelby County. And this is just the procedure only, so don't try to find out where everything else is. Introduce the value here. Explore various alternatives. For example, individuals or groups have students explore the various alternatives. Muslims are not a real religious group at all. They are in fact a sort of social movement trying to take power and wealth from many tribes that reside in Arabia. They should be wiped out. Now, let me tell you why I put this here. The introduce the values either through verbal instruction on the board, introduce the students to the following dilemma. When we wrote this curriculum, we started from the very beginning. Suppose you're a public official of the Byzantine Empire in AD 634. There are a number of attitudes you might take towards the growing Islamic religion, threatening the empire towards the south. Explore the opportunities or options you might take. These are different options. So I just didn't say this to say that Islam or Muslims are bad. These, during this time period, might have been options for you if you're the emperor of the Byzantine Empire, okay, or a public official. So I give you different steps here. Brainstorm positive and negative effects. Individuals or in groups investigate the potential positive and negatives of each of these choices right here. So think about this. What's the strength? What's the weakness of this? What's the strength? What's the weaknesses? What's the strength? What's the weaknesses? What's the strength and what is weakness here? Students or groups make a value choice. They must select one of these right here. One of these 4 choices. And what's interesting is, then you have to actually back it up. Instruct the students or group to present their choice. Encourage students to provide a rationale. You just need to say, yeah, I was kind of lazy. I picked C because C looks kind of cool. No, it doesn't work. You want them to pick, think about the strengths and weaknesses of each one, and then decide which one's the best, and then defend it. Okay? And by the way, if you want any of this curriculum, it's about that thick, and I can email it to you. And it's just full of lessons about early Islam, and it goes all the way up to current day. We just did a series of different lessons throughout the project. If you want to know, you want it, email it to me. Send me an email, and I'll get it to you as soon as I can. Now let's look at putting it into a lesson plan format. Okay? Here, standard. Key opportunity, students will be able to conduct the following objectives. Students will evaluate factual data presented in the video. Students will compare and contrast. Now this video, this lesson real quick before we wrap things up, is, I don't know if you remember back in the 1990s, Los Angeles had a bank robbing where you had 2 individuals with fully automatic assault weapons go into the Bank of America and shoot the place up. And it turned out to be a total shootout with the LAPD. Well, in reality, one was killed, and the other one was shot and wounded, and what was suggested was that the LAPD let this individual bleed to death. And if you're interested in this, you can go to YouTube and Google, or YouTube, Los Angeles bank robbery in the 1990s, and it actually has that video. What I do here is I show the students the video, and they have to act as if they're jurors. And think about, did the cops really let this guy bleed to death, or did he kind of have a little social street justice, and he kind of got what was coming to him by shooting everybody up, and then he bled to death? Oh, well, I'm so sorry, I'm so sad. So it's interesting. This really gets the students going. But let me digress for a second. Evaluate, compare, identify, and defend, measurable objectives. We'll judge the facts. Here's a goal. State standards, I didn't put them here, but you can definitely put them in there for sociology, government, etc., etc. Materials. Materials this lesson, we're using the following 2 national newspapers. I use newspapers. I also use the 30-minute video that you can find on YouTube. Okay? And students will review the short video in the classroom on the Promethean board or whatever technology you have. Background. Designed to address the issue associated with human behavior and stress in dangerous situations. We're going to use a Los Angeles bank robbery, and the 2 robbers bled to death while police watched. One was shot, actually, we now know he took his life, the other one bled to death. Academic language, here, and this is the first lesson within the unit. So we've talked about, briefly, the basic causes and effects of human emotions during a stressful situation. Okay? So this is the background information that we use that students never see. It's showing that we've done our work, we've done our due diligence in trying to get everything done. Okay? Here, procedure, I use the values analysis approach. Introduction, took about 5 minutes. Ask the class if they believe police officers and other members of the authority abuse their power because they can. Or has anybody ever had a negative impact by law enforcement, portrayed from television or other sources of the media? And it's interesting, you open up a can of worms here often, depending on where you live, and also, what's going on. Procedures. Introduction to the thing. I take about 10 minutes as a whole class. If they've ever heard of the news from a friend that a police officer was accused of hurting or possibly killing an individual in self-defense. Very timely during this time of the year, especially what's been in the news recently. Explore various alternatives here. Show the class the video of the Los Angeles bank robbery. It takes about 30 minutes to do that. This was when I taught, and I used this when I had a block class that was longer than 60 minutes. Okay? Brainstorm positive and negative effects, about 5 minutes. Ask the students to raise their hands, support and non-support for Los Angeles Police. Just going to ask them, how many of you support what the police officers did? Raise your hand if you support it. Raise your hand if you do not support it. Okay? For students who do not support the actions, ask them if they would think differently if they were being shot at, or what's most important, I think is very interesting, those who say, oh, he should never have bled to death. The cops let him die there on the street. And you ask yourself, what would happen if your father, your brother, your mom, your dad, your uncle, or friend was one of those police officers? And it just kind of puts a different spin on things. Students defend their choices. It takes about 15 minutes. Instruct students to read the 2 short newspaper articles of the event. Are there similarities or differences? Because what is interesting is newspapers, just like Fox News, CNN, MSNBC, whatever outlets are out there, they all have their own little different spin on things. So by reading the 2 different newspapers, it kind of puts a different twist on things. Okay? What I had them do for assessment, it was formative. It was an informal grade. We had them do performance and homework. They actually did have homework. And when you do have students do homework, you always know what they're going to do. Where students are required to research in internet or newspapers to find current articles where law enforcement has been accused of abusing their power. Based on the time you see this video, I'm sure you can go and do that right now and have plenty of opportunities to find where there's been police that have been accused of abusing their power. Okay? And then here, students should examine articles as if they were a lawyer, either supporting or defending the issues developed and the pros and cons for each particular case. So this is their homework assignment. If you do have homework, make sure they have something there. This lesson dealt with the following. These are your measurable objectives, your 4 ones you had at the very beginning: defend, identify, compare and contrast, and evaluate. And also, this lesson attempted to do what? Explore the life and death circumstances police officers and other people face on the job. Okay? So it kind of brings out the emotions of what's going on. Lastly, modifications. Auditory learners, class discussion. Kinesthetic learners, discussion and writing on the board. If you can do that, sometimes you can't, but you're planning for it. You're always going to try to plan for it. Visual learners, video, material, etc. Diversity, based on the video evidence. You know, is this likely to happen more to minorities or to people that are non-minorities, and what parts of different demographics and cities would this most be likely occur? Once again, you're planning for the big picture. Does that mean it's actually going to happen in the classroom? Hopefully, but it doesn't always take place. Lower level, high level students right here, and last but not least, your special education modifications. The same thing I've been using for the last modules. Put that there, and I will not take off. So, I know it was fast. To the point, but look up the video. If you want the lesson plan, you've got it in the module itself. If you have any questions, please, please, please shoot me an email and we'll go from there. If not, I'll see you the next time. Thanks.